Hello my fellow YouTubers. This is a no start condition on this Mercedes Benz. So we're going to start by establishing whether it's a fuel or ignition problem or whatever. So we're going to start by removing the air cleaner assembly. And it doesn't really require any tools. Everything comes off. It's all plastic. On the rear here, I'm going to point to a little bracket. You push that back and you can lift the air cleaner out. So I'm going to spray some carb clean in here and see if it's a fuel related problem. So you get in the car and see if it runs. And as you can see, it runs. So now we know it's a fuel problem. So this pretty much eliminates ignition, computer, all that other stuff. So we're going to pursue the fuel system here. So on the passenger side, you'll see a little brass cap. That's where you're going to hook up your fuel pressure tester and see what you got. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to hook up your fuel pressure gauge, go inside the car and turn ignition on. You should see about 50 or 55 psi when you turn the ignition on. Alright, so I'm going to go turn the ignition on here and see what we get. It stays at 0. So we're going to pursue this diagnosis a little further. Let's take all the simple things out of play first. On the rear, inside the trunk, driver's side, I'm going to gain access here to the fuse panel. And this is the main fuse for the fuel pump. Now go grab a test light and you're going to check the main fuse, which is the fourth from the bottom. It's a 20 amp fuse. Check for power on both sides. This establishes that the fuse is good. So now we're going to check the relay. So actually what we're going to do is we're going to bypass the relay. So what you want to bypass is you're going to go from pin 3 to pin 5. They're going to be the bigger spade connectors, so it's easy to figure out. So you're going to get a little jumper wire here. And we're going to bypass this. Now you should hear the pump run once you plug this jumper in. If it does run, then you know it was a bad relay, or the computer is not turning the relay on, which would be a whole different scenario to diagnose. But in this particular case, the pump is completely dead. I don't hear it at all. It doesn't run. I have no fuel pressure. So we're going to have to replace the pump. Now to gain access to the fuel pump, it's located underneath the rear seat. So the rear seat has these little tabs in the front. You just depress and you lift the seat out. Lift straight up. Now the fuel pump is located on the passenger side. You'll see this compartment there. So you're going to take the cover off. I believe these are 8mm bolts. And this should gain, from here you should be able to get access to the fuel pump. However, there's a little surprise here, which I'll explain. Alright, I need to explain something about this particular fuel pump. Unfortunately, on this vehicle type, it's not serviceable. This is actually equipped with one of these California emissions PZEV crap, whatever. Anyways, it's a sealed tank and the pump's inside it, unserviceable. You have to buy an entire fuel tank to repair this. Now, Mercedes has some kind of extended warranty on these tanks, but they're really terrible about honoring their warranties. So they like to play a lot of hot potato. They'll blame it on whatever dealer, but they don't want to do it. Anyways, so I ended up buying one for I think it was $2,400, and I'm going to install that tank. So my advice is anybody who has one of these Mercedes with this particular type of sealed system, get rid of this car, because eventually this pump is going to fail on you and you're going to be paying big dollars to fix it. Alright, so we're going to start by removing part of the exhaust system. So we're going to get it right here where I'm putting at these clamps. You can undo these clamps. There's two clamps, and we're going to remove it all the way to the rear. Now make sure you support it with a stand, and then remove these hangers. They're rubber hangers, and you can just pry them off with a screwdriver. Some of them you can actually just push off by hand. They're really not that hard. So there's going to be 4 of them, which I'm pointing to here. I know the lighting isn't that good, but you'll be able to kind of see what it looks like. I like to mark the drive line, so you can take it off, so you can put it exactly how you found it. And then there's going to be 3 bolts. You're going to need an 18mm and a T60 Torx socket, and just remove the 3 bolts. And also on the front, which I'm not showing in the video, you need to undo the drive shaft center support, and that'll give you the extra clearance that you'll need to remove the drive line. Here you get a better view of the center support. It's held on there by 2 bolts, and they're also going to be Torx. Now remove all your paneling and all the heat shields that are going to be in your way from removing the gas tank. undo the park brake cables, and also remove the fuel line. And make sure you plug the fuel line so nothing gets in there. And besides, it'll stop it from leaking all over the place. Next thing, undo your filler net clamp. This is a plastic clamp. It's like a two-piece clamp. And then up on top, disconnect your electrical connectors. Now this will be on the opposite cover. And also undo this nut. And here I just tied off the cables, the park brake cables, out of the way. And now you can pretty much start to lower the tank. But you're not going to lower it all the way because there's this vapor tube up on top, which is probably the hardest part of this whole job. So you're going to need a 27 millimeter crow's foot to break this fitting loose. I will show you a picture here. Once you get that fitting off, you're pretty much ready to start lowering this tank. Like I said, just be patient. That's probably, I thought, was the hardest part. So this is the fitting I'm talking about, right on the very top, and it's rigid, so you can't lower it down too much. So right there, that's where you're going to need your crow's foot to break that loose. You can. It's really easy to turn. It's finger tight. So now here's a new fuel tank, and just install it the way you took the other one off. Just take your time. It's from here on, you're almost there. Now make sure you check your filler tube seals. Make sure they're not damaged in any way. And I put a little lube on it just to help with the installation. That's what I'm pointing at. Now for the fun part again, getting this tube back on the tank. You just gotta mess with it. Eventually you'll get it. As you see here, I got it finger tight, and then you just snug it down with the crow's foot and you are good to go. There's another angle of it. Now here, you see those are the straps for the fuel tank. See how I have it? On that other side, there should be a plastic clip. Make sure that's in the proper spot. So there's 4 bolts. Now on the new tank, it comes with a heat shield. You're going to have to remove that heat shield so that you can route your parking brake cables, and you can reassemble the park brake self-adjuster again. Now the self-adjuster for the park brake is pretty tricky, so make sure that when you put your park brake back together that you have the slack adjuster adjusted so that it gives the cable a lot of slack, and it'll also aid in the installation of the cables themselves. Now what I'm showing you here is there's these 2 hooks, and that's where the park brake cables go. Now reinstall the gas tank heat insulator or shield. Now back to this park brake self-adjuster. When you take it apart, be careful, there's a nut on the back of this, so make sure it doesn't fall out and you don't lose it. Also put some Loctite on that bolt. There's a view of it assembled. Now go ahead and reinstall your driveline. Make sure you bolt the driveline on to the differential first, then tighten your center support. Now go ahead and start installing all your heat shields. And one thing I forgot to mention, before you install the driveline, there is one shield that goes over the driveline first, and then the other ones will be beneath the driveline. So make sure you don't get them confused. Reinstall the fuel line and tighten it. Now you can finish up your plastic panels. You're almost done. Well, I couldn't get this panel on because my lift was in the way. So you'll see me pull it back off, but I'll install it later. So now we're going to tighten down the clamp that belongs on the filler neck. Now this will be a plastic clamp. It's a two-piece clamp, splits in half. So make sure that the filler neck is all the way up here. Sometimes you can push it by hand. I had to actually use a little pry bar to help it completely seal. Otherwise you'll never be able to get the clamp on correctly. Now you're ready for the exhaust. It's easier with two people. I was able to do this with a transmission jack. I just took my time, and then you'll see there's a crossbar for the exhaust system. It's actually an adjustment bar. You can actually adjust the pipes with it, but it's strong enough to lift up with. So I was able to do it by myself, which was pretty impressive. I was surprised I could do that. And once you position the pipes into place, you can go ahead and put your insulators back on, your your rubber hangers. You could spray a little WD-40 on the hangers to aid in the ease of the installation. It made it a lot easier. Now on the pipe clamps, make sure that you position them so they're not hanging down in the car, you know, because sometimes people run over stuff. So I usually like to have so that the flat sides are facing down. And that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions, feel free to post a message and I'll try to respond as quickly as I can. Sometimes I get hung up, so it could take a day or so. But good luck, everyone.
It lives for a mere $2,500. Ouch. There's the fuel pressure at 55 pounds. Turn like a kitten. Not a fixed air conditioner.